Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, veuillez accueillir, please welcome Clément Eulry en conversation avec In Conversation with Eric Novak.
Thank you. And, day 3. It is day 3 at Movin'On. I've had a great time here. How about you, Clément?
Very great time.
It's
great meetings, great conferences. Great.
Yeah, great information, great topics and subject matter, of course, of which we want to talk about a bit with you today. Now, your role at Google, it's an impressive title, but I think to start off with, perhaps you could maybe elaborate a bit on what your role is and perhaps even how everything you do impacts upon sustainability.
Okay. Let me first start with thanking you. I'm extremely delighted to be here.
Yes.
To see many people and many partners in the room. To thank the Michelin Group as well for organizing such an event and making people discuss together about how to build a better mobility and better, more sustainable mobilities.
Right, yeah.
Very delighted to be here. So I'm Director for Automotive and Mobility for Google in France. And we and my team, we're working with automotive players, mobility players, public authorities into facilitating mobility for users that we all are every day. And for companies, it means basically by facilitating this mobility, growing their business today and inventing the business models for tomorrow that will enable growth tomorrow. Because if we face it, mobility for us users is an extremely challenging task every day.
Of course.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
Congestion, safety. It's not very optimal. Environment, obviously. Cost, distribution among the population. And it's complex. And we have many more options.
Yeah.
But maybe it's also extremely more complex. And we can maybe discuss this afterwards.
Yeah.
We think, and I'm convinced that there are 3 allies to solve these mobility issues and make it less complex and more sustainable. One is focusing on the user needs. The second is technology, to invent new services, new mobility. And the third one is working together, building bridges between companies. And we as Google, we think we can be and we should be part of the solution. No company can do it alone. Google can't. But if we do it through technology and partnerships, that's how we should do it. And to answer the question about what do we do, what's the impact we are trying to have at least.
On sustainability, of course.
On sustainable mobility is one to users. We think it's, we are an information provider, a technology company. So to users, it's providing the right information to the right time, to the right people when they need it. For instance, if they want to go from A to B, it's basically providing them with the best alternatives, be it car or other alternatives which are more sustainable. That's one to users, for instance. With companies, it's building or bringing technology, bringing information so that they can develop their services, their mobility services. It's either by enabling them to address the right message at the right time when people show intent to go from A to B, for instance.
Right.
It's also by providing technology which would improve the mobility itself and the optimizing the business model. You could say, for instance, BlaBlaCar, which is a very strong partner of us, uses the Google Cloud Platform to optimize their business model until they can offer their carpooling service to a door-to-door service. Not only I go from city A to city B, but door-to-door, so that it's more appealing to people. So that's exactly.
Okay, now at the core, though, Google really, we all know it as a search engine, but really it's a company about data. And data is something that comes with opportunities, and it comes with challenges, too. This is something that we all know, the world that we live in. Given the framework of what we're talking about here, how do you see the data that you acquire as, where are the opportunities with that type of data?
So the first thing is, yes, mobility is about managing the data that is useful to users so that we can bring the best answer. We all can bring the best answer. And data is all there. Since we have this smartphone, especially, that we take out of our jacket or pocket 50 times a day. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we talked about backstage, the power of those smartphones nowadays. In your hand, there's more technological power today than the Apollo missions had launching the first rockets into space. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there.
So the data is here.
Yeah.
The thing that is the most important is that we all have, and users should all have, control about what they share and don't share to companies like Google or mobility players, and what they would get if they share this service. For instance, sharing your location settings on a service like Google Maps helps the navigation system give you the best route. So that's the point.
So do we all know where our settings are? I mean, do we all have the ability to change those settings?
Yes.
We forget it exists, right?
And by the way, we announced, to build on what you said, we just announced to be even more helpful to users, the fact that in one tap from any app, Maps for instance, we can access our data control and say what is shared, what is not shared, and also decide to automatically remove, cancel history, for instance.
Okay, and that was a recent announcement. You just announced that.
Yeah, in Sandra, our CEO did it in May. I think.
Okay.
So yes, so data is important to mobility. What is important is having control about what we share and what we get when we share it. And to users, so it's additional services. To companies, it's basically accessing this data in an aggregated, if we'll say that the data that Google is working with, is using this aggregated and anonymized data to basically be able also to adapt, personalize the message that we provide to users, so that they provide to users, or the service, so that it's adapted to their needs and expectations exactly at the right time when they need it.
So, I mean, clearly, as you said, there's opportunities. Ben, you alluded to it somewhat as well with privacy. There are challenges, too. I mean, there is a certain trust factor that comes with the acquisition and utilization of data. What are some of the challenges that you could sort of discuss that, play a role in what you do every day?
So the main challenge is basically control of the data and what are we comfortable with sharing to companies so that we get the personalized data. And so the main opportunity is for all of us to get informed about this. So that's why we provide information in one tap to what we share, don't share, and take action and control this data. Maybe you were talking backstage about what it means if, as we give control to people, which is the right thing, obviously.
Right.
Does it mean that less data will be shared and then that the mobility services will be less adapted? My answer is I don't think so, because data is all out there. I think the challenge is rather how do we make data usable for all players? For instance, if you speak about how to build a sustainable mobility for commuters, it's about providing the best options in a real time. The commute tab in the Google Maps platform, for instance, which is live in 80 regions, I believe, provides information real time to people that commute about, okay, I want to go from A to B, B being my work, for instance. Should I take the car? Should I take a bike and then the train and then, I don't know, a scooter?
Sure, why not?
Exactly. So I think that's exactly this, and this ability to integrate services through shared data, which is public most of the time, and real-time data. I think that's exactly the challenge, because the standards are not very much aligned, but that's also the most opportunity to provide a better mobility for everybody, so that also people can, in a way, move out from the car when it's not needed to go to more sustainable.
I do find it funny, though, because when you look at Google Maps and you put 2 points in and you have the estimated routes, there's always a timeline. Maybe it's 25 minutes to drive or 35 minutes by public transit. And then you see, oh, it's only a 4-hour walk. No problem. I'll take that option instead.
If you do from, I don't know, Toronto to Montreal, it will be maybe 27 hours. And,
maybe I'll try that next year's Movin'On, but not right now. But also, your data is not the only data out there. I mean, what would be the best suitability for your data versus another company's data in terms of developing this overall sustainable mobility and multimodality network?
So I think data is at the heart of new mobility. So every player has data that on its own.
Okay.
Customers that are part of the CRM system, for instance. Or you could say also in-vehicles data for car manufacturers. These are data which are extremely valuable for companies to adapt their communications, their services, and provide the best offer, and potentially it's a more sustainable means of transportation. So I think there are plenty of data there, and I think the question is more about how do we give control to people about what they share, what they don't want to share, and how do all companies actually use this data which is shared to basically adapt the service.
So with transportation, and obviously Google Maps and Android Auto, we're also moving in personal transportation to more sustainable powertrains, to electric vehicles, and to, in some cases, there still is the case for hydrogen fuel cell. And one of the challenges, of course, with adapting greater is infrastructure. And there's always, I'm an automotive journalist myself, so I always hear the concerns about, range anxiety. I think in some cases Google is weaving into your point-to-point information about where to charge and even what's available or not. But I mean, is that something we're going to see more of, a greater integration with
Yes.
Newer forms of powertrains?
Yes, so in the mission to provide information so that people can make the right choices,
Right.
there's also a mission about showing what's available in terms of charging stations, for instance. Why is that? Because as an electrical vehicle driver, you're often faced with, okay, will I reach my destination with the level of batteries that I have still left? Or if not, where can I charge?
Of course.
So very recently we've announced that now if you're an EV driver, you can, through Google Maps, search for EV charging stations. Mm-hmm. And then you will have the locations of the EV charging stations plus the type of system, because one of the challenges is the compatibility.
Yes.
Between
different level 3 fast chargers or other systems. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So the speed of charge and the availability as well.
Of course.
Is there already a car at this charging station or not? So I think that's one thing that will help users, EV drivers, drive or have better trips, and also maybe it will help in the long run show the easiness of such a means. And if we go to a little bit further also in the battery, the challenge with battery when they're manufactured is that the energy density is actually lower than fuel engines.
Of course.
That's the main challenge.
Yeah.
So that's why, and we're here again on technology and partnerships. We are partners with Volkswagen and with the Daimler Group as well to test this new technology, which is a quantum computing, to basically simulate the chemistry and manufacture potentially better lasting battery in the future.
Well, I mean,
that's where technology
is
information, but it's also innovation, and this cannot be done alone. Huh? It's
and that's interesting
because from a technological standpoint and manufacturing standpoint.
So that's actually working towards helping automakers develop new vehicles and
Yes.
such as well.
Yes.
Would we ever get to a point in talking about how integrated the information we have, say, on our maps or Android Auto? Because I can also, when I put in the destination, I can see where there's heavy traffic and there's clearer traffic. Traffic patterns affect fuel economy. They affect your range as well. Would we ever see such a deep integration where the vehicle maybe even knows the model of electric vehicle that you have? Okay, I have a Hyundai Kona EV or a Tesla Model 3 with a type of range. Plus, I know you're driving on this route in heavier traffic conditions, which may impact your range one way or another. Are we ever going to get to that level of personal customization?
I think it's an ambition, and I'm very confident that we can provide this all together again. And you know, for instance, when the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance or the Volvo Group have announced that they would integrate the Android Auto operating system into their cars. So basically, it's an infotainment system which enables to have access to services, apps like Google Maps, Play Store, etc.
And Toyota is finally getting around to Android as well.
Yes, exactly. So I think that through this, car manufacturers will be able to build personalized experiences based on vehicle data that they have and specific consumer data that the client is willing to share so that they can provide these OEMs more personalized experience. And what you're saying is, which is making sure that based on the traffic conditions, the vehicle, etc., I find the best route through the charging station at point A, or no, actually point B, because traffic has been heavier than expected. This is exactly, I think, an experience that we should have the ambition to get.
And mapping is even more important too when we're getting, and I know we won't delve too much into the autonomous side of things, but I mean, in climates like here in Montreal or in France or in Toronto, where I'm from, we have winter, and the future of autonomous driving is going to be impacted by the ability to know the roads. And we have these challenges with sensors, but I think, I was just interviewing someone from the AAA Safety Foundation. It's really about mapping. So I guess that data too is going to play a key role in moving this idea of autonomous vehicles forward too, will it not?
Yeah, so I think here it's again about technology and what technology can bring and what partners can bring, a partnership can bring. If you look at autonomous driving, so we have a sister company called Waymo within the Alphabet Group, which is working on building the software that can be integrated into vehicles. And yes, this software at this stage is tested in day-to-day life in Phoenix, Arizona. So it's working in, I would say, ideal conditions. And yes, a lot remains to be done to make it work in less ideal conditions.
Just my condition.
Which I find less ideal, I'm
yes,
sorry.
we have it, okay. It's a
and yeah, so with the right architecture and the Google Cloud Platform, for instance, enables to integrate the high level of data, volume of data, the right algorithm, machine learning is there, with the right signals, then I believe that we can solve the main challenges that we have when it's about mobility. And this is one of the challenges, how to make drivers safer, driving safer in difficult conditions. It might be by removing the driver altogether, but for that, it's about a lot of improvement remains to be done, for sure.
Right. Now, a lot of some of the things we've talked about have touched on the idea of partnerships. And I think a lot of what you do in your job as well is also developing partnerships. How can partnerships going forward play a more significant role towards getting towards this goal of multimodality and sustainability in transportation?
So, again, if we come back to the users that we all are, mobility, day-to-day, it's super stressful, complex, not optimal, doesn't work well. And one figure that I read recently was that if you look at multimodal commute, if you want to make it perfect, you need to, process more than 8 bits of data. Bad luck, it's more than connective power.
Okay.
So the challenge is huge. Multiple services already exist. New services will be developed.
In?
Should I shout?
You're good. Okay. Now start singing. We can sing loud.
So, yeah, multiple services exist. So this complexity will potentially arise. Solving this issue, making sustainable mobility a reality for everybody, will mean that we need to put expertises together.
Right.
Google, for instance, we are not a mobility company. We are a technology and information company. So if we want to solve, and I believe that car manufacturers, transportation players are have obviously extremely great expertise and can develop new services based on infrastructure and technologies that they can build or they can choose to partner on with. So partnering is extremely key to solve complex issues. And I think it comes back to what every company should ask as a question. We are doing the same as well, which is, okay, let's take the value chain and see, okay, where do I have a role to play that I want to play alone because I have a competitive advantage? And what are the value chain parts on which I should actually build on a partner to basically provide the best user experience and build a competitive advantage? For instance, that's exactly what the Renault Nissan Mitsubishi Alliance did with the Android Auto part, saying entertainment in vehicles is maybe not where I would like to invest most of my investment capacity, but maybe I would like to invest more in terms of vehicles itself. So bringing the mobility, solving the mobility issues together means technology partnerships to really go forward.
So we see these developments and these partnerships. Sometimes we see them after the fact. The development cycle of an automobile, for example, the current model vehicle we see today was a 2 or 3 year development chain. What, without obviously giving proprietary or secret information away, what are you working on in the short term that we probably will see as the next evolution? I mean, you just had an announcement in May. What might you suggest we're coming to next? I know that you can't say things. I can try to prod it out of you, but where might we see something in the near future that's of note?
So I think it's user experience. Right. And I think we, as companies, we as users, we should be super excited about all the opportunities that remains to put the user experience at the center of everything we do so that they make the right choices towards the right mobility services, for instance. And coming back to user experience, I think that's where we'll see the most improvement, and I hope that's where we see the most improvement. For instance, in-car experience versus outside-of-car experience. We just touched upon it with Android Auto, for instance. That's one. The car is actually the only time of our day, in a way, where we don't have as much access to information as we have normally.
Well,
or if we do,
well, that
it's
should
super
be
dangerous.
Because you should be focusing on the road. Yeah.
So, providing a seamless vocal experience in car, which is in line with the experience that we have outside of the car in a very safe way, is extremely important. That's an issue to be solved. Second, user experience is back to commuting. I'm sure that now that we have the platforms that can integrate different set of data, I'm sure that we'll solve one of the issues, which is basically the standardization of data, so that people people like us every day can make the right choice in terms of commuting. So this is user experience, and by doing the partnership and collaborating, as we said, many more.
I still think, maybe this is just me, I still think that in the voice and the response, I still think there's a market out there for that polite voice who, when it says turn right in 400 meters and then you don't, and it says recalculating, and you keep going and it says recalculating. I still think there's a market for that voice to get angry at you. You know, so it's like, no, excuse me, I told you to turn around. Can you work on that?
So, my family member might scream at me already first.
We already have it organically as it is.
No, but I think you're more serious note on this particularly. I mean, with vocal assistance, which is definitely here today and will be the future, I think every company can think about what is the personality that I want to give to the personal assistant.
Yeah,
for instance, we SNCF, when building this action on Google, which is this assistant app on the Google Assistant, has been thinking about, okay, what is the voice I should have, what is the tone I should have, because it's basically the personality of my brand. And to win in tomorrow's world, especially in mobility, building the link between the brand and the consumer is one of the most important things. One thing I realized is that when people are looking for cars, buying a car, at the beginning of their purchasing cycle, they only have 3 brands in mind. if you're not in the top 3, there is extremely little chance that you will be chosen at the end. So this link between a brand and a consumer is super important. Assistant is
Well, I'm still waiting for that voice personalization where my teenage son can say, Dad, are we there yet? And that's just as it is. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I think there's a lot more to discuss, but data is ongoing, and I certainly look forward to seeing how things evolved, and I hope it was an enjoyable conversation for you in the audience. Certainly, thank you, Clément, for being a part of this, and everyone enjoy the last little bit of Moving On here in Montreal and safe journeys home. Thank you so much.
Thank you.